From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now, here's Hotline editor, John Mercurio.
Welcome to Hotline TV. I'm Amy Walter.
Really, and I'm John Mercurio today.
Awesome.
It's been really fun.
Isn't it nice?
It has been a long time, and our inboxes have been filling up with your emails, so it's time for us to start answering viewer email. Let's get right down to it.
All right.
Ready?
Dear Hotline TV, seriously, I had no recollection of lobbying for an abortion rights group 22 times in the 1990s. But okay, apparently I did. That's not going to sit well with conservatives who I really need to like me. Should I be concerned that those flies who've been buzzing around this war horse are going to start getting louder? With the deepest respect and admiration for the hard work you do, Fred from Nashville.
Yeah, Fred, we've been discussing this for some time. There seems to be, I think we've heard of another person who may be in similar, a friend who's in a similar position.
Sure.
And I think the answer to this is get out there and stop the bleeding, right?
The bleeding.
Start to address the, first and foremost, make sure that you continue to put this image out there of the straight talking, straight shooting, outsider who's not going to be your typical politician.
Totally agree. Totally agree. This was a sort of a rookie mistake, if you will. This was somebody who said, "All right, here's this negative report. Can we sort of obfuscate the facts about it?" And they decided that they could. They didn't, and somebody who had never worked in a law firm didn't realize that there were going to be records that the New York Times was eventually going to be able to obtain.
Except that Thompson has come out. I mean, I think he actually effectively responded. He went up on the blogs, and he has also in TV interviews said, "Look, I was a lawyer. I was for a long time, and a lobbyist for a long time. There are thousands and thousands of cases at my law firm that you can bring up and attach to me."
Right.
That's true, and I think that's the best way to first go after it and say, if you're going to pick on every single case that I've ever covered, then yeah, I'm going to have, that's, but let's just face it, let's move forward instead. But the point is, if you know that's going to happen, you need to vet yourself first and say, how are you going to respond to? What are the most controversial issues in here? How do you respond?
Right.
You know they're going to come up. Be prepared. So the answer, quick question, Fred, keep going through those records. Don't let yourself get blindsided anymore.
All right.
Okay. Dear Hotline TV, so I have this dilemma. People tell me to be careful not to overshadow my wife, who's like up for this big promotion at work, and I used to work there and was kind of popular, but wanted to make sure people didn't spend too much time comparing us. So I've been helpful, but kind of in the background. Now I find out that another person is up for the job and is using his spouse to vouch for him, and she's even attacking my wife. What should I do? Confused hubby, Chappaqua, New York.
That is a very uniquely complex problem that you're having there, hubby. And my only advice to you would just be to love your wife. To love your wife in the only way that you know how to. No, look, I think you need to support her and you need to be out there. And I think that this is going to be the sort of ongoing, recurring, repeating, repetitive, sort of at some point, sort of exhausted storyline of the 2008 campaign. How much will Hillary use Bill? And it's sort of
will he overshadow her?
You hear
Can
echoes
he
of 2000. There was the Gore-Clinton comparison, and then when Gore lost, it was because he didn't use Clinton enough. I think the Clinton campaign would do itself a lot of favors and would reduce its man hours spent thinking about this if they just sort of let the two of them campaign together, but not all the time. Look, 99.99999% of Americans know that Hillary Clinton is Bill Clinton's wife. Right. And that should be the end of it.
That's right.
Whether they're together or not,
exactly.
whether he overshadows her or not, is really
and I
just
don't really
sort of
think that. I think those stories. You're exactly right. They've already been used. We know where he's the most effective. Fundraising, ginning up the base. Use him for those things. Don't use him too much. But I think they've been very effective in doling that out.
Put him back in the closet during the general election.
If needed. Or if you need him to go do some base
okay, all right. If it looks like they're going to win in
too.
Virginia, sure, send him to Richmond.
All
sure.
right, okay.
All right, dear Hotline TV, I'm an extremely popular and successful ex-governor of Virginia who generously offered to serve my country as the only true conservative Republican candidate for president. Ooh, who could this be? My offer met with, well, mixed reviews, and I decided to withdraw from the campaign earlier this month, still at the top of my game. Now I'm receiving overwhelming pressure to run for Senate or governor, again in the great Commonwealth
Yes,
of
Commonwealth of Virginia.
What should I do?
That's a really good question, Jim
G.
It's hard when you know that
Alexandria.
there's so much potential out there, and you're still
So
trying to
much.
grab it and figure out what to do with
Top
it, right?
of his game.
Top of the game.
Top of his, just like
Although they-
Seinfeld. Just they ended just when they
Michael
should've.
Jordan,
Sure.
well, multiple times. Okay, here's the
Strom
point is
Thurmond.
this. Strom Thurmond, yeah. The reality is, if John Warner decides not to run for re-election, which it is looking to me more and more likely is the case, how do, the question has always been, will conservatives embrace Tom Davis? I think that's a very fair question. But when you look at the FEC filings, and we also tend to forget this, that there are more than just Jim Gilmore as viable conservatives,
Sure.
right? There are Republicans in the delegation who have a whole lot of money that they're sitting on, right? Even somebody like a Goodlot who's sitting on a great deal of money. Eric Cantor, sitting
Sure.
on a big pot of money. These are all folks, not only do they come from outside of Northern Virginia, so they have that going for them in terms of a geographic base, but they can also appeal to conservatives. That, to me, is much more of a threat to Tom Davis than a re-emergent Jim Gilmore campaign,
Yeah, I think.
Oh, by the way, he has like he has more in debt right now than he does cash in the bank.
Right.
There's that.
And I'll just make this brief. I think the fact that he's even talking about running for Senate is being met in Virginia political Republican circles with a little bit of hand-wringing. The last thing that they really need is a competitive primary,
that's a
which
good
he
point.
would make it, and the last thing they need is a really competitive fight on the right, because I think you're right. I think you've got people like Goodlot, you've got people like Cantor, conservatives who could challenge Davis, but the last thing they need is like a big fight on the right where Davis sort of ends up winning the
Well, that's a
moderate
good
middle and winning the primary or the convention, whatever it is.
All right. Well,
Moving right along.
finally, I like the job I have right now, but I am getting lots of pressure to run for the Senate.
Oh.
I've tried it before, and it's really not that fun to lose. Besides, even if things look great for me today, I mean, I am up big in the polls. How can I be sure that it'll be true next year too? A Jay Shaheen from Cambridge, Mass.
Jay Shaheen from Cambridge, Mass, who wants to run in New Hampshire,
Apparently, yeah.
or
yeah.
in.
She has a job. Remember, another
She does
job.
have a job. She does. All right. Well, listen. Look, she almost won in 2002. Fantastic year for Republicans.
Yeah.
That's to a large extent, I think it can be argued why she did not win, because there was a national tide working against Jean Shaheen's campaign. Johnson Nunu, I would say, the most vulnerable Republican senator up for re-election, just based on the polling, based on the changes, the demographic and political changes you've seen in New Hampshire since he was elected just 6 years ago. The whole congressional delegation has switched from red to blue, at least in 2006. So yes, I do think that she has a very, very, very good shot if she chooses to get into this race. Should she do it? That's a question for her and her God. Now, that's a question for her and Billy Shaheen.
Yes, about whether that's the question about who wants it more.
Right, and she's probably doing a lot more work right now that than she could be doing in the Senate. Well, maybe that's not true, but she's doing things right now, I think, at Harvard and in
when you've been
New
an
Hampshire.
executive, I mean, you've been a governor, and granted, it's a small state, and you only have a 2-year term, but you're an executive. Now you go, you're one of 100. That is a very difficult transition for many of those executives to make. I want to say 2 points. The first is, I think 2002 absolutely was a great Republican year. It was tough no matter where you were as a Democrat. At the same time, I think it was also, in many ways, a referendum on the Shaheen gubernatorial term, right?
Sure.
So that she was asking voters who had felt sort of mediocre about her time as governor to give her a raise or give her a promotion to the Senate. So I think that was part of it as well. The question now is,
And of
are
course,
Democrats...
the Republicans took the governor's office that year.
Right. And Democrats now, as you pointed out, 2006, great year to be a Democrat in New Hampshire. The Democratic governor now has like an 80,000% approval rating. So independents, 2/3 of them right now say they're going to vote in the Democratic primary in January. So look, everything is coming up roses for Democrats, but is it really just a reflection of how they feel about Bush? And can Sununu do an effective job of making himself sort of, a New Hampshire independent instead of being a Bush Republican? And that is really going to be the question for Jean Shaheen. So, anyway.
All right.
Are you still going to be Amy?
I'm
or
going to
are you
be Amy
gonna
Walter,
okay.
so that's about all the time we have for today. Keep up the correspondence. We love and we read every letter.
And thanks for joining us on Hotline TV.